Hey guys, Shawn from She's in Her Element. I see you decided to spend some time with me today, and I'm really glad you're here. Rosie and I were on our way home from our favorite farm stand the other day, and we saw this little cabinet curbside. So of course I had to turn around and pick it up, and today I am going to totally transform this piece from curbside trash to a decor treasure. So don't go anywhere. This is one transformation you are not going to want to miss.
Yesterday there was sun and there was rain, beauty in the mundane.
So this solid but dated piece of furniture was curbside. But you know what they say, one man's trash is another woman's treasure. And this piece is no exception. The minute I saw it, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. My brain started going. As soon as I got home, I ordered some new legs and some new hardware, both much more suitable. And with a little elbow grease, some know-how, and a great vision, I am gonna transform this piece completely. As always, I always start by cleaning my pieces thoroughly. I am gonna do that with my Dixie Belle White Lightning, give it a good scrub, and then I'm going to go over it with water to remove any residue left behind. You always want to start with a very clean surface. Definitely don't leave anything behind that's going to compromise your paint. Make sure it's prepped correctly and ready to go.
As a young girl, the fields were mine. We played hide and seek for hours, raised our shadows among the pines. So offshore, playful and free, without a care in the world. I was one rich little girl, daydreamer, kidnap me, take me back, all the way back to them days, running around in a gown and a crown.
While that's drying, I'm going to move on to the next step, and that is this bottom. I am not a fan of the bottom of this cabinet, so I'm going to take it right off and give it a whole new silhouette that's not as dated. Now this is going to be an easy enough removal. I just need to remove a few screws and then pop it off, and that'll be that. I wasn't sure if I would have to add a layer of wood to the bottom once I got this off, but it's actually very solid and thick, and I don't think I'm going to need any other type of reinforcement. I'm also thinking that this is pine, so I'm going to be bleaching all the areas that I want to restain, and I'll explain more on that when we get to that step. I want to get this old hardware off. I never throw hardware away. I have no intentions on using this back on this project, but you never know if I may need it for another project. So I always save my hardware. I keep baggies around for that purpose. I will stick it all in there, and then I'm just going to take some tape, and I am actually going to plug up the backside of these holes. I don't want any of my stripper to just rip down and through and into the drawers, so I think that is the best way to prevent that, just adding some tape to the back of each and every one of those holes. I'm just going to throw some of Scott's detailing paper around the base of this cabinet where I don't want to get any citrus strip. I do plan on painting the base of this, so it really doesn't matter, but at the same time, I don't want to remove some in one spot and not in the other, so I have this on hand. I'm just going to wrap the cabinet in it, and then I'm ready to go. There are many, many choices out there on the market, but I actually like using citrus strip. Doesn't smell really bad, works really well. It's the one I prefer to use. Do your homework, check them out. There's so many out there, like I said. Find the one you like best. This is my choice, so I am going to give it a shake. Then I'm going to get a good coating on all of the areas that I want to remove the stain from. And the thing with this, you don't want it to dry out. You want it to stay wet and retain that moisture that it has. So a good thick coating on the surface. Be sure to get it in all of the corners and crevices, and then cover it really good with plastic. This is going to keep it wet. This is going to keep that moisture underneath that plastic so that it continues to work its magic and start eating away at that finish. So you want to make sure you get a good plastic seal on there after. Once I have everything all covered and sealed, I'm actually going to walk away for a couple of hours and let it do its thing. It's been a couple hours now, so I'm going to remove the plastic wrap, and using a plastic scraper, I'm going to see how much of this gunk I can get off. It's a wicked messy job, so you want to make sure you have old clothes on, wear an apron if you have one, and don't make the mistake that I did and wear white sneakers, which are now permanently studio sneakers because I ruined them doing this process. But it's very, very messy to remove stripper the way I'm about to do it. So plastic wrap is off. I have scraped the top off with my plastic scraper, and now I'm actually going to go in with water. Water neutralizes the citrus strip, which is what I want. So I'm going to resaturate the area, which kind of reconstitutes the stripper a little bit. So any areas that have dried out while I've been scraping are now going to be wet again. And using a couple different wire brushes, I'm actually going to go back at the finish, scraping it off. And I find that this works really well, not only in cracks and crevices, but on the surface itself. Look at how good this is really coming off. I'm only going to do one application of the stripper on everything and just scrape as much as possible off. Super messy, like I said. Have something underneath you to catch all of it, wear your old clothes. Then once I get all of this off, I'm going to go back at it with some mineral spirits and some double yacht steel wool. That's 4 zeros for those that aren't sure what double yacht means. And that is going to remove any gunk that's left behind from the stripper with the old gross finish. You want that all off before you start sanding. You never want to sand anything that has this gunky residue on it. It's just going to get worked into the piece, mess the piece up, and totally ruin your sandpaper itself. So mineral spirits afterwards. Want to see what I've got? I'm going to let the whole thing dry before I sand, because again, you never want to sand anything wet. You always want it dry. So I'm going to let it sit and dry, and then I'm going to come back and see what kind of color this little pine piece has.
Barefoot.
It's the next day, everything is dried, and I want to take it outside, and I'm going to use my surf prep and sand it. I want to get off whatever's left behind. I want to get in those cracks and crevices that I couldn't get, and all on the edges, and really try to get all of that old stain color off, because I plan on doing a color wash on these areas. And I want to do it right. So in order to do it right, you've got to start with the right foundation, and the right foundation is getting it all off. So I'll use my surf prep, and I'll also do some hand sanding and using those awesome silhouettes I am always talking about. Again, I'll toss that link down below for you. Check it out. There's a lot of great information in the description box below. Be sure to pop down there and see for yourself. These things have come in so handy, and I really do love them, and they're totally affordable, and you don't make anything off of it if you buy it or not. I'm just passing along a super useful tool that's actually budget friendly, and one you will find yourself reaching for like I do. So enough yapping, let's get some music on and let me get to sanding.
In a gown and a crown, barefoot.
So unfortunately, as I suspected, it's really a yellow orange. I mean, that's just what pine is, but it's not what I want to see. And all of them are still pulling a very yellowy tint. and that's not gonna work. So we're gonna bleach all of these with household bleach out in the sun and see what we can do. Using bleach, I'm gonna put the pieces outside in the sun. I'm gonna put a little bleach in the cup, and I am going to use a chip brush to put a nice layer on the piece. I'm not gonna like dump it on there, but I'm going to allow quite a bit to flow from the brush onto the wood so it can penetrate. And hopefully this is gonna take that yellowy, orangey, piney look out that I don't want, because I don't want it. So before I get going with my bleach, definitely putting an apron on. You always want to be safe because it'll just ruin your clothes, and there's nothing fun about that. Let's get it going.
One big smile across my face. We used to dance our way to church on Sundays. Mama set the pace. Daydreamer, kitten and maid. Take me back, all the way back to them days. Running around in a gown and a crown, barefoot.
All right, everything has a nice, pretty thick, if you will, coating. I mean, bleach is very watery, but I put a lot on there so it would absorb, and we gotta let it dry for a bit, and I'm actually gonna come back out, check on it, and I'm probably going to put a second coating of bleach on it, and I might even do a third overnight. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how the yellow ends up looking, because I mean, you can see it, it's very, very yellow, and I just don't want yellow. It's not gonna work. It ruins the look of what I'm trying to do, so here's to hoping. Now, real quick, I have a lesson for you. I had picked out these two colors by Fusion, and I do know better than to not prime over a dark walnut or cherry stain. But for some reason in my head, I kept thinking it's yellow and orange, yellow and orange. I was just fixated on those two things and just wasn't even thinking about the tannins. If you aren't sure what tannins are, simply put, they're just naturally occurring compounds that's found in certain wood varieties and stain. And because of their chemical natures, they seep to the surface, causing discoloration even after stripping and sanding and repainting or staining. As you can see here, I did not put a primer down, and I had tannins coming up through the paint, which was becoming a very frustrating process. So I had to stop the whole thing, and I need to actually seal this. So I am going to get a coat of primer on all of this and seal it and start it all over again. Again, I'm always telling you guys not to do this, and I know better. And because I was so fixated on the pine and the tone of it, I just really wasn't thinking, and this mistake cost me some of my time and some money, because my time is money. So now I have to correct all this, and basically everything I just did paint-wise was a waste. I honestly can't believe I made such a stupid mistake, and that's exactly what it was. It's truly a stupid mistake. I'm not going to cry over spilled paint. I'm just going to keep moving forward, and that means I'm going to get a coat of primer on this. I'm pivoting. I can do this. Breathe in, breathe out. So this little mistake with the tannins coming through ended up being a good thing, because as we all know, I love changing my mind when it comes to a project, and I've changed my mind about this one. We are now going with Dixie Belle's Spanish Moss and Buttercream. I like that. We're going with this color combination. I just get kind of irritated with the green and the pink, and because I had to do it white, it just gave me time to like rethink it, and we all know I love to change that. I change it all the time, so I'm notorious for changing my mind in the middle of a project, and this was the perfect excuse to do that. I wasn't necessarily loving the green on there. I actually love that green by Fusion. Carriage House is a gorgeous, gorgeous shade, but it wasn't right for this because I'm trying to think of the other components that are going on to this. So, as Bob Ross would say, happy little trees, happy little accident. It's gonna be good. It's still gonna be good. The idea of this entire project is going to be darker on the outside, lighter on the inside, and I actually think that these two colors are going to look way better with the paint wash that I want to do on the wood. I'm not doing a stain, I'm going to do that paint wash, and I just think this color combination is so much better. And you know, mistakes like these, I always say it's nothing, but I did waste a little bit of time and material, so take that into consideration. I have to keep saying it to myself, stop changing your mind, girl. But when a project speaks to you, you have to listen. And this one was saying, nope. I'm gonna keep the colors neutral, and I'm going to do a blended paint finish that's darker around the outside and lighter on the inside. I'm also going to add color to the faux separations on the drawers to make the appearance of the individual drawers even more realistic. Now, when it comes to the blend, I'm going to put my first layer down in the general shape I want the colors to blend into each other at, and I'm going to slightly blend them. But at this point, it's not going to look too good. You just have to trust the process because it really is going to be beautiful. It's the second layer that you're going to pay a little bit more detail to. So for the first layer, I am going to get the paint everywhere and I'm going to do a slight little blend into it. Now, to put the paint on, I have 3 brushes. I have 1 brush for each color, and then I have what I call my neutral dry brush, and that's what I'm going to be using to do the blending. It's not necessarily dry because I do use my water mister to do the blending, and I also mist the brush, but that's what I use that's not saturated with color, that allows me to mix these 2 colors together, blend them, make them look seamless and cohesive, and they just kind of melt into each other. So for the first coat, don't sweat it too much. The second coat, we're going to pay a bit more attention to.
We played hide and seek for hours, raised our shadows among the pines. So offshore, playful and free, without a care in the world. I was one rich little girl, daydreamer. Kidnap me, take me back, all the way back to them days, running around in a gown and a crown, barefoot. No mistake ever kept me late. We spent summers catching fireflies and winters on our skates. One big smile across my face. We used to dance our way to church on Sundays. Mama set the pace. Daydreamer, kidnap me, take me back, all the way back to them days, running around in a gown and a crown, barefoot.
Now I am going to get the second layer of the blend on, and this one I'm going to pay more attention to, and I'm going to really try to make the colors as seamless as possible. There's a lot of back and forth when you're blending, so you're going to have those 3 brushes in and out of your hand constantly. Make sure you have a rag nearby so that you can wipe down your neutral brush if it gets too heavy. You might even find that you need to switch the brush out entirely if it gets too saturated, and that's totally fine. But it's just a lot of back and forth with the brushes. Step back and look at it. Where does it need a highlight? Where does it need a low light? I'm looking for the darker around the edges, the lighter in the middle, but it would be whatever blend you had in mind. And there's many different ways to blend. There isn't one way that's better than another, and there is no wrong way to blend. You just want to make it seamless. That's the whole goal of the blend, is to make it seamless. You want one color to just roll into the next. And it does that by picking up the two colors together and mixing all of these different hues that just seamlessly go into each other. Now, blending can totally be frustrating, believe me. I've thrown my brush across the studio more times than I'd like to admit. But you just have to step away, take a deep breath, and sit back down and go at it again. And once you do get the blend and understand the concept of what you need to do, how much water do you need, how much paint you going for, then it becomes like, wow, this is so easy. And you can just kind of go into autopilot and do your blend with your music on, or maybe a show in the background. Whatever floats your boat while you're creating, you'll get into that groove, you'll find your rhythm, and you will love it. So don't give up on the blend. It's a hard thing to learn for real. That seamless transition is hard to achieve, but once you get there, once you know how to do it, oh, it's so much fun. And I love how this just changes the look of a piece. Instead of it being one solid color, it has depth, it has dimension, and it has character. And that's one of the reasons why I love using the blending technique. I'm going to pull the tape off the drawers, and I'm also going to use a paintbrush, and I'm going to poke through the holes of the old hardware spots, and that's going to get all of the stripper gunk off that fell in there. So I'm going to remove that and put new tape on there. The new hardware I'm adding doesn't have the same hole pattern, so I need to cover this up. Now, because I'm staining it, if these were going to be visible, I would have to be super careful about this and use color matching markers to make the grain and all kinds of extra steps. But because this hardware will hide these holes, I can be a little bit more carefree with it. I'm just going to use some of my Dixie Belle mud, and I'm going to carefully get it in the holes to make it smooth. I'm not going to make a huge mess on the wood. If it gets a little bit here or there, I'm not going to worry, because I will be able to sand it right off. But I am going for a very clean fill. I don't want to slop it on there and have a whole lot of work to do after to get it off, but I do want to fill these holes. This little artist's trowel is perfect for jobs like this, and I actually got it from the Dollar Tree, so that made it even better. All the holes have been filled. I've wiped off the majority of it, and now I'm just going to let it sit and cure so I can come back, give it a sand, and I can get the paint wash on here, because I am dying to see how that's going to look. So I'm going to let this dry, and I will be back. The mud is set, and now I'm just going to use some 220 sandpaper and gently hand sand this. It comes off super easy. I need to sand each of these blocks anyways, as you can see the difference right there. Like, it does help remove a little bit of that yellow that might have been brought to the surface from the bleach. I don't really know. It's definitely lighter, and after I go over it with this hand sanding, it's even more lighter and ready for that paint wash. So I decided to use the exact same buttercream that I used in the body of the project, and I am going to create a paint wash using buttercream. Now, I didn't do any kinds of measurements or anything, but it's very watery, and I did test it on a stick so that I could see how easily it comes on and off. The goal of a wash is so that it doesn't penetrate thick like paint. You don't want it to be opaque. You still want to see that wood grain through there. So the goal is to get it at a nice watery consistency that you can move it on and off real easy, but it does add color tint to the wood. So I'm excited to see it on there. I'm not gonna lie, I'm very excited. Using this fabulous little level that I have, I added the new hardware. I wanted to make sure that on each drawer that they were perfectly in line and not all wonky, and this level came in super handy. I got it at the box store and it was definitely under 20 bucks. A great thing to have, especially for projects like this with the hardware where you really want to keep your line of sight perfectly level and even. So I changed out the hardware. I got the new legs on, which I just have to say I am loving. What a difference. I knew that bottom didn't belong on here, but I had no idea just how good these legs were going to look. Before I share the amazing transformation on this piece, let's take a minute and remember how it started. I knew it had style and I knew it had pizzazz, but it was dated and dark. I kind of could see why someone might put it on the curbside. But with a little knowledge, a little elbow grease, and a little time out in my studio, I was able to give this piece an amazing transformation. I am blown away with the new look of this curbside find. The hairpin legs go so nicely with the vintagey vibe that the new hardware brings to this vision. And the top with that whitewash. Oh, I love, love, love the color. There is no yellow coming through. And the afterthought of adding those two small magnolia transfers was the absolute perfect touch on the top. I love the illusion that this is a real apothecary cabinet without having to try to find small things to fit into these tiny little drawers. Instead, there's three nice big drawers that offer ample storage to tuck those things you don't want to see completely away. I can see this in an entryway. I can see this in a kitchen. I can see this in a bedroom or a bathroom. I think this piece can blend seamlessly and timelessly into any decor. Everything looks like it was always supposed to be this way. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. What do you think of the new look of my faux apothecary cabinet? Did you like it before or after? Well, guys, what do you think? I can't even believe this is the same piece. It looks nothing like it did when it started. I hope this has inspired you to give those curbside pieces a second glance, because you never know what you have sitting there until you get it home and let your imagination take over. As always, thank you so much for joining me today as I transformed this discarded piece of trash from the curb into this gorgeous faux apothecary chest. Love it. I love everything about it, from changing the bottoms to giving it legs to changing the hardware and bleaching the wood. Everything came together phenomenally. I couldn't have asked for a better outcome, and those two little transfers on the top, absolutely perfect for the piece. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, now is a great time to do so. I love sharing things like this, and I have so much more coming up. I'd really hate for you to miss it, and I don't think you actually want to miss it. So hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time on the flip side. Bye, guys. Love it. Love, 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 love.